Hello everyone, and welcome to my Place Anywhere mod tutorial for Fallout 4. I've seen some other videos on the Place Anywhere mod, but they don't really go into much detail. But not to worry, because in this video I'm going to show you all the tricks I know. They're not really that complicated. In fact, they're pretty easy once you learn how to use them. Bear in mind for this video that I do have a lot of settlement building mods, which is why it freezes for a few seconds going into workshop mode. I also have some sort of bug that doesn't allow me to build in the Starlight Drive-In, so we'll be doing it behind the shed. After installation of the mod, an object should be added to the aid section of your inventory called Place Anywhere. The function of this object is for you to be able to change the Place Anywhere settings for your liking. The first thing we're going to be looking at here is object positioning, specifically with the options menu. I have my settings changed so that if you grab and release an object, it will open the options menu. I'll show you how to do that at the end of this video, so be sure to watch the whole thing before you do anything further. Alright, now the first thing I'll be showing you how to do is object placement, specifically with the objects menu. To activate the options menu, simply grab and release an object. You could also do this by grabbing an object and placing it, so long as you're fast enough. After that, simply select where you want to move it to, the amount of units you want to move it, and then of course just activate nudge to move it. You of course may repeat this process as many times as you'd like. This can work with any object in the game, so long as you can first place it in green and move it around. The reason I'm demonstrating this first is because sometimes you may get a problem where it says object was released too early. Also because for whatever reason you can't use Place Anywhere on plants. This is the only way to do it. Next we'll be looking at the main feature of Place Anywhere, which is probably what everyone understands, and it's also the easiest part of Place Anywhere. But it still has a problem, and I have a solution. There's actually two issues, but they both have the same solution, which is just to simply grab and release or grab and place a different object. You can then test to see if this worked by grabbing and releasing the first object. Now let's get into issue 1. So the first issue is where if you grab and release the object that you just moved using Place Anywhere, it will go back to the original spot you had it in before you moved it. This happens a lot and can be quite annoying, which is why I thought it's worth mentioning. Just like issue number 2. This one isn't as annoying, and it usually fixes itself if you fast travel somewhere else and back, but it still can be quite annoying. The problem is that sometimes when you use Place Anywhere to move an object, it'll be vibrating. One thing I've noticed about this is that unlike issue number 1, issue number 2 has been mentioned a lot in YouTube videos about the Place Anywhere mod. But anyway, in case you didn't know, to move objects with Place Anywhere, if you're on Xbox One, you'll need to grab the object, press X, drag the object where you want to move it to, and then release the object. If you're on PS4, you will need to press X to grab the object, move it to the area you would like to move it to, press square to activate Place Anywhere, and release the object. It actually doesn't matter at all whether you activate Place Anywhere before or after you move it to where you want it to be. All that being said, there's still a lot more to cover for this mod, but it is pretty simple once you get all the parts to it. Alright, now finally, as promised, I'm going to show you how to change your settings in Place Anywhere with the Place Anywhere configurator. I'm also going to show you what all the other stuff does. So first, I'm going to show you how to open the options menu by grabbing and releasing an object, as demonstrated earlier. Under the activation method menu, set the grab and release toggle to open options menu. There's other activation options, but I wouldn't mess with those. After that, other than global collision check, there's two pretty self-explanatory snapping settings. But as for global collision check, I'll let you try that out yourself, because once you deactivate it, a menu pops up telling you all the stuff you need to know about it. I'll show you that menu in a second, but first, general snapping is basically the type of snapping that happens when you build walls together, or floors together. On the other hand, grid snapping is basically just a less precise way to move objects, where it just snaps every few units. Anyway, I'll give you enough time to read the global collision check menu. Alright, so here there's 3 different options for global collision check. The first one is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not completely sure about the second one. And finally, the third one is also self-explanatory.
In my bowl, and just like that, I'm on a roll. Reese's Puffs, Reese's Puffs, eat 'em up, beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Reese's Puffs, Reese's Puffs, eat 'em up, beat 'em up, beat 'em up. I got Reese's Puffs in my bowl. Now my days on cruise control. I got Reese's Puffs, Reese's Puffs, Reese's Puffs,
As you can see here, once you turn off global collision check, you can easily just go back in and turn it back on. Next up is precise movement, which is basically the nudging thing I showed you earlier with how to move any object you want. The default in precise positioning is direct, but that's really bad, so I suggest you stick to the other one. Alright, next we're going to be talking about scaling, physics, and object properties. So first, there's a problem with scaling. If you scale an object up or down, it'll keep the original physics of before you scaled it. For example, if you scale an object down, it'll still take up as much invisible space as before you scaled it. But I'm not about to give the problem without a solution, and that solution is grab an object, release it, opening the Objects menu, go to Object Properties, and disable Objects. After that, grab and release a different object, opening the Objects menu, and then go to Object Properties and enable all disabled objects. Oh, and another thing, the scaling numbers can be a little bit weird, so let me explain it really quick. I'm gonna explain this with an example. If it says minus 0.1 scale, then that means it scales down by 10% of the object's size. That means every time you scale it down, the effect won't be as big. Now I'm gonna show you how to copy and paste object positions. This is another and rather a faster and easier way to move any object anywhere you want. Again, so long as you can pick it up and release it. As you just saw, the option to copy and paste object positions are both under object properties. All you really have to do is copy the position for one object and then paste the position for the other one. But there's one problem with this, which unfortunately I don't have a solution to. The problem is that sometimes when you paste the position of an object, it will paste the object onto a previous copied position. Unfortunately, I have no prevention for this since I have no idea why it happens, but if it does happen, just try recopying and pasting the positions. The next idea we're going to be toying with is physics. Now I'm sure this has confused a lot of you, so allow me to explain it very carefully. The physics option allows you to change junk items, or really any moving item like a weapon, into either a dynamic object or a static object. A dynamic object is essentially just any object that can move or be moved by either you, a companion, or a settler, or any other NPC. But anyway, by default, all these objects are dynamic, which you can see by this biometric scanner falling once I grab it and release it. But once I change its physics to static, you'll see that it no longer moves when I pick it up and release it. You can also change its physics back to dynamic if you want to, but until you switch it otherwise, it will always stay the way you set it. Unless you uninstall the mod, of course. Speaking of which, I think if you uninstall the mod, all the rescaled objects will stay rescaled, and all the moved objects will stay in the area they are, which is pretty good, we want that. But, and I'm not sure of this one, or really any of the other ones, all the objects that you change the physics of will return to their default physics. And remember global collision check from earlier. That will definitely help with some objects that are slightly floating. But if objects are floating, you can just use the object positioning with nudging I showed you earlier. To remind you, global collision check is basically just when objects snap to the ground. So when you turn that off, all object placements will be red, meaning you have to do all of them with place anywhere. Allow me to demonstrate that here. As you can see, the biometric scanner is not snapping to the surface. And that's what I really love about Place Anywhere. It allows for a lot of freedom when you're building and decorating. Now I'll demonstrate how to nudge objects with object positioning. It's the same as before, just go into Options, Position, and nudge anywhere you want to. Next up is notifications. That's basically the little messages you get in the top left corner, such as when you harvest a crop. What I mean by this is the notification you get when it says the crop has been added to your inventory. After that, there's Master Control. Master Control is basically just your ability to change the settings in Place Anywhere, so I recommend you just leave that on. And that will be all, everyone. In case you were wondering what mods I was using in this video, I'll put the links to all the ones I can find in the description. Anyway, I really hope this video helped you out. If you did, then please feel free to like this video video. It took me a lot of time to make. And if you liked this Fallout 4 video and want to see more in the near future, then feel free to click that subscribe button. And that will be all, everyone. In case you were wondering what mods I was using in this video, I'll put the links to all the ones I can find in the description. But if you don't feel like looking in the description, then here they are now. Anyway, now you know how to use Place Anywhere like a pro, and I wish you all good luck in building the best wasteland city you can, and I congratulate you all on your new knowledge.
Congratulations! 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 Congratulations!